We're recording. So we've touched on graduated bobs. We've touched on bobs above shoulders or any line above shoulders, which would be your bob. I know Darren and myself have both focused quite a lot on your fundamentals and your classic cutting shapes. Going on from what Darren was just doing in his short graduation video, where he had a slight bit of creativity coming through in his short graduation, and the top section, especially his use of over direction, was incredible. I'm going to do a slight twist on a graduated bob. So as I've said earlier, we've gone through the fundamentals. We've focused on those quite heavily. We will touch on those again. So all of those comments in the box at the moment of what we'd like to see us do, please do let them still come through throughout the session if there's something you think about. But I want to show a difference in a graduated bob, and something that I love doing. I love the look of this haircut and I love the outlines, and you'll see what I mean when we get to the base. But internally, we're going to look at our internal shape and our external lines. So internally, the graduated bob shape is very similar to your classic graduated bob. So we're going to primarily look at the same section and patterns, but the body position changes. And you'll all be very aware that I talk heavily on body position. I talk very heavily on comfortability and make sure I feel comfortable when I'm cutting. But we want to ensure that we protect certain areas, and we can do that with the body position. So if we remember from last week's session where we were working our bobs above shoulders. Sorry, I've just pulled my section out here. When we were working with our bob above shoulders, and we were mentioning that we wanted to stand in a certain position to ensure that we kept the suitability of this piece here behind the ear and ensured that we kept the strength of that line. And you'll also remember that when Darren was doing his a couple of weeks ago, his graduated bob, he was almost over directing sections away from this area to ensure that we kept the strength down here. Yeah. So what that means is when we come through and do our line, we don't get any sort of hole in here or any instability through the side section from the back hairline into all of this area where there's a vast area of hair, of space without any hair. What I'm going to do is break that rule now. I'm going to start stepping into the side with my graduation so that I create a hole in here. I want that hole to form because I want this to be really nice and high graduation, quite tucked in at the nape. And then I want to have this really sort of sharp, jazzy outline coming through into here, running into the corner of her lip area, if we can get it that high. I'm aiming for something around about the lips to the chin, okay? And the reason I'm looking for something into that level, we talked suitability quite heavily. Now, my mannequin she's got quite a wide head really at the top. The width comes out quite high up here. And it's quite a square face. It's quite a natural head shape for ladies and gents in salon. She's also got a fantastic jawline. So I want to sort of influence something down here in my line that comes up and just sits around about this sort of length here, that I can get something really crisp and really sharp. But to do that, I need to lift my line into the back. Because the hairline is quite falling quite low, we want to make sure that we tuck this area really nice and tight up here to create a hole into here, which we can get that really nice line coming in and just combining and sitting through, okay? Also, you'll notice we have our fringe in from last week. That fringe was quite rounded, and I'm not sure what I want to do with that from it yet. We may blow dry it in, see that it works really well. Chances are I'll try and put something a little bit squarer in today, just to show you what we can get with that real nice, heavy sort of combination of lines and connectivity of lines. I love it when the hair comes in and hits really nice and tight and then bang into that shape and round. So let's get going. Will we still learn this when we come back? You will, absolutely. Everything we show here, you will learn. Everything we do in these sessions is just to give you that area of creativity, slight tweaks to the way we work. Everyone has haircuts that they do differently, and everybody has techniques that they use. So if you can combine different techniques together and formulate your own, absolutely perfect. This is why I always say when I'm teaching level 3 over in Loughton, is that yes, you have your techniques and you have your structure, but you're always going to find a way that works better for you. So you will learn these techniques, and we will touch on these when we go back. Every demo that I do with you guys, or every demo that I do with my groups personally, we will still be demoing every single group that we do when we go back. We'll still be doing them all on clients, and everything we do will be formulated in Academy. So these are just to give you some ideas and get your creativity flowing. So you will see that we're working from a center profile. Again, I quite like working from center profile. I find it works quite nicely. I've ran my section for separating my front from my back from a very low crown area. So that's going to drop right below my crown. I'll explain why that happens in a moment. I'm one for parallel lines. I'm one for working things through the haircut really nice and clean and really smoothly. And then my back section is where I'm going to begin. So I'm going to work something quite triangular. Triangular is where we start shorter in the back, longer into the front. So we're over directing every section of hair from the front back to here so that we can go nice and tight and still keep that length into the front piece. We can choose where we want to go in the front, okay? If you do find that starting in the side works easier for you, it is a little bit more difficult, but you can do a graduated bob from the side. I would say that's more level 3, so don't focus on that too much. Okay, so we're going to get going. So my section in the base is primarily going to be, make sure she's nice and straight first of all. My section in the back seems quite big, but I've run my low crown into just the tops, almost just behind the point of the ear. Okay, because I want that graduation to sit nice and high. Okay, so what I'm going to focus on solely first of all is my internal shape. We're all aware of our internals and externals. So an external line or our perimeter is your outline. I call them your outlines. Anything internally is all in here. So I want to get my graduation in, blow dry it through, and then do my outlines. Okay, it's a nice clean way of working something a little bit more creative into your graduated bob. So enough talking, we are going to go. So I'm going to section down the back and again, split my two pieces aside. And as usual, any questions you have throughout, please do fire them at me, okay? So we've got, I missed the beginning, did you already cut in the base? No. So we're starting, this is a bob I did last week, but we are starting from our internals, and then we're gonna push straight into the outlines once we've dried at the end, okay? So then I'm gonna run from my occipital bone into my section behind the ear, okay, and I'm going to put another clip just in there and another clip behind the ear in here, okay. So you can already see that my sections are running parallel. This is going to be my pivot point. So the same as we did with our classic graduation, we're going to pivot underneath the occipital bone to create my stacked graduation. And then when we run up the head, everything stays this parallel the whole way through to the very, very front. So we run through that second section from, or the first section from our crown with this section here. And it adds so much more flow to your haircut. I see a lot of people when they work, they come up to behind the ear to their radial, and then they sort of tackle this side piece in the front of the radial section. So all of this softness in here. And I find when you do move your head around, or the guests move their head, and it doesn't all have that sort of chic flow to it. We want to ensure that we get that nice connectivity from the very back to the very front, and everything internally connects. It's how we learn about, or how we started working with geometry, and how do you get from one place to the next place with everything combining and connecting. It's a great way of cutting hair. So I'm going to lift her up because I can't reach. And we're going to go. So section number 1 is going to pivot from my occipital bone. Section 2 will go from the occipital bone. Section 3, 4, probably just 4 actually, not 5. But all of my sections are going to start pivoting from my occipital bone. Okay. So if we see on my head sheet, here's my occipital bone, and I'm going to pivot my sections round. So in your pizza slice segments, or orange slice segments, or whatever you like to call them. And we're going to bring each section back to the previous section, okay? Now, I don't like talking about back to the previous. I'd rather number my section in. So I'd rather have my little numbers in there. So section 1 is in the center, section 2, 3, and 4. and then 2, 3, and 4. So section 2 will come back to section 1, section 3 back to section 2, and section 4 will come back to section 3. Okay, what we're doing by using over direction is just slowly and gradually elongating some length into the sides of the head. So let's get going. Make sure that section's in nice and tidy. That clip's not very good. I'm going to change my clip. Oh, don't kick your client. That's not very professional. So clip that nicely away and we will get going. So section number 1, we're going to take vertically down the center. Excuse me, I do drop a lot of stuff. So section 1 in the center, and we want to take this nice and tight. So we were talking about this earlier with my earlier group, and I think it was Sarah said about having her fingers in the wrong place and not knowing where the fingers were going, and it was such a crucial piece of information that I think was missed slightly. So when you're right-handed, we're going to do it my way. If you're left-handed, we do the opposite. So on your right-hand side, we want to be always graduating on the inside of our fingers. Whenever we layer hair, we want to layer on the outside. It's just more comfortable and your body stays nice and straight. When we graduate, we want to graduate on the inside of our fingers. Okay, so a great piece of information earlier from Sarah was graduate the first section underneath, tuck our knuckles nice and tight. Then on the right side, we want to twist over the top and have our knuckle in the pivot point. So all we're doing is just pivoting our wrist round, okay? And then on the other side, do exactly the same, but our fingertips become the pivot point, okay? So on the right-hand side, we want to be over the top with the hair internally in our fingers and just run that shape round so our knuckles don't move. And on this side, our fingertips don't move, okay? So section number 1, hopefully I'm going to twist it so you can see my elevation. I want this piece to be quite tight into the base. So on your bob with graduation, or where we cut the line in first of all, we leave a lot of length and we just take off the slight corner, okay? Difference here is I want to take this in quite tight. So my elevation still stays in that 45-degree angle, but I don't like using degrees, so I'm going to elevate slightly higher just to lift my graduation weight line a little bit more, okay? So again, into here. Make sure I've cut every piece. And we can see that that graduation sits quite nicely, okay? So now I'm going to run my right-hand side.
Rob, can I ask a question? Sorry about that.
Absolutely.
You know, you said because cutting with the comb, so guarantee you here that we're not going to cut this with our comb.
No, so when we're working any outlines, generally we want to cut it in the comb like we did last week to keep away any graduation. Because we form that elevation, do everything in your fingers.
Okay, thank you.
Pleasure. So we are now going to pivot. So I personally go one to the right, one to the left, check I'm balanced, and then you just run that line through, okay? So section 2, we're going to pivot from the occipital bone. Keep your section in nice and clean, and I'm going to stand in behind the guest. So keep my body position in the same position first of all, and we're going to pull section 2 back into section 1. So we're gradually over directing back. You can find my guideline in there and take that section away. And again, run that line and try and tuck that shape nice and tight down into the nape area. So have a little look, and we can see that my line is now becoming a little bit messy. It's becoming a little bit untidy. One big thing that I will say is really try and ignore your outline while you're doing this whole thing, because at the end the outline looks incredible, but it can throw you a little bit if you don't feel like you're getting the right outline. So section 2 on the left, I'm now coming underneath instead of over the top, tucking my knuckles. I'm still over directing back to the previous. Okay. So again, run that. And now I'm going to cross check. So I'm going to come straight up the back and just check that my line is running nice and flat, which would be quite good. And now I want to start stepping round. Okay, so now I want to start controlling my shape into behind the ear. I want to form a hole in here, which is quite rare. We don't ever want to get a hole, but I do, because I want my line to come up nice and high. Okay, so again, spray her down. And we're going to pivot again from the occipital bone and start running into the side. But this time I'm going to start stepping round. So I'm going to step into just behind the ear of the guest. Still over directing back to the previous section, but I'm now looking to control the way my line runs. So run that line. And again, tuck nicely into behind the ear. Okay, and sorry, and now last section, step in again to the right hand side, keep my elevation nice and high and run my line. So keeping everything nice and clean and nice and tidy really helps with your work. In here, you start to see that I run this really round. So I want to now take a bit of that outline length away that I want to destroy. So you can see we're now starting to lose our shape and come up. Don't let that put you off. Okay, I want that to happen. I like that little bit of height in there, but it's going to change it even more. So what I mean is, when we're doing a graduated bob that we want to keep a solid outline, we stand in the back, if we remember, and everything's pulled back to here. Yeah. So we create that slight corner into the base because we don't want to lose anything into here. But as soon as I step round, if I don't move my hands, I'm just going to step round. If I step, we start to control our shape a little bit tighter into the jawline and into the nape line. Okay, so if I step back again, we're in the side. If I step back and we're in here, the fingers stay in the same position. But if I step round, my fingers start tucking in a little bit more. So if you want to create your strong line, stay in the back. If you want to do something a little bit more creative, what we're doing today, when we have our nice little outline at the end, step into the side and just control that line off the work. Okay, I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, please do let me know. So we're now going to come back to this side here, and I'm going to come around here so hopefully you can see a little bit better. That's not going to work. So I'm going to step into the side again, and you can see where my knuckle is aiming down now into that area that normally we look to protect. And run that line. And then our last little piece in here. So fingertips are staying in the same place. My knuckles are starting to change, but everything's coming round and cut on the inside of our fingers. Am I in the way? I think I'm in the way there. And run into our shape. Quick check of the balance. Slightly longer on the left-hand side. So I'm gonna, just about. So I'm going to lift my elevation a little bit higher. Maybe I was lifting a little bit too low. And just run my line through. Okay. So that's probably the most difficult part of the haircut done. Now everything just runs itself through. But I want to cross-check first of all. So how am I going to cross-check? Can anybody tell me how I'd cross-check this? If I've started and pivoted this way, how would I cross-check? Anybody tell me?
Would it be straight across?
Could be straight across. You would look for something slightly straight, but there's a slightly better way to work it.
You take a diagonal back section.
You do. Perfect. So we're going to come take a diagonal section towards the back. Excellent. Because it just comes across our shape. If you wanted to cross-check horizontally, you could get away with it. But if you really want to be very sure, we want to come across the back section and just double check where we're going. So you'll see that I'm slightly rounded. I'm almost rounding my section in a little bit, which is what I'm after. Because I've stepped into here, we're almost creating that little bit more of a shorter feel into the front, okay? Which is perfect. It's exactly what we're going for at the moment. So again, cross check all the way up, perfect. And similarly in this side here, I'm going to take another diagonal back section and work my shape. As we see, we're just coming round. I don't know if you can really see that. If I do that, you'll maybe be able to see it a little bit more. So we're coming in and it's creating a much more sort of rounder shape into there. Still getting longer into the front, so we're still working triangularly, but I'm happy with the way that works. Now, ignore the outlines, okay? Really, really important. Don't get yourselves bogged down with a messy outline because the outline will change once we've blow dried at the end, okay? So now we're just gonna work up the head. How much battery have I got left? My battery on this is not very good, so hopefully we'll finish before the end. So now we're going to work up horizontally, or sorry, diagonally towards the front, all the way. So next section leads up, pin that in, and we can work both sides at the same time, or we can work one side and then the other, completely up to you. The last thing I want to do is start to lose control of this line. So I don't want to come up now and run into my overall radial section, for instance. So next section, our highest point of graduation was in there, okay, from our section number 1, and we pivoted round to that point of elevation. Now, each section that we go up, I want to elevate slightly higher. I'm going to change my comb so you can see it a little bit more. So we want to, first section was in here. Now, every section that we come up, I want my elevation, there we go. I want my elevation to come a little bit higher. So each time I want to lift the hair so that I'm raising that overall weight line slightly higher each time we go up the head. Okay, so my elevation has started quite light, but I want to get lighter and lighter. I don't want there to be a really heavy, rigid weight line in the base or in the occipital bone. So by your elevation, just create your weight. So obviously we know the higher we lift the hair, the lighter the hair becomes. So section leading up, we're going to begin. So I'm standing directly in the back first of all. I'm going to take a little section down the center and run my line. And then I'm going to start to step round into the shape again. So using that same technique as we used before, if I want to control my outline, I'll keep in the back. But if I want to step into the right and get a hole in there, which we'll explain later, I'm going to step in and my fingers just move into that position. Okay. So your body position is just, as I always say, it's crucial for when you're keeping yourself feeling comfortable. But your body position can also make your haircuts completely different. And when we're looking for that suitability for clients and when we're looking for people to actually have that personalized stamp on their hair, just by moving your body, you can create something so special. And again, in here, we're going to work our shape down. And then I'm going to step into the left-hand side, just behind the ears, and again, continue to flow that line into the front. Just check on the length, that sits quite nicely. And now we can start to see the graduation forming into the back. So we can see we're getting nice and high in there, creating something a little bit soft outlines for now. And then we're just going to move all the way into the front. So personally, I take one more section down before we move in and do the same. So we're going to elevate our section a little bit higher again, even still, because I want to keep that nice softness to the look. So lengths up, run my line, standing in the very back. And then I'm going to start to step around. So again, I want to step into the right and tackle this piece here. Find my guide. Can't find my guide, so I'm going to pick up a little bit more. Perfect. And then again, step into the right-hand side again and run my line nice and flat into the side of the head behind the guest's ear. So you can really see that hole forming now, okay? That's what we're after at the moment, all right? So again, stepping around this side, if I show you around here, we're gonna keep our elevation just that little bit higher, but I'm stepping to the left slightly. Everything cut in the inside of our fingers now. And again, step again to the right. I'm not going to step, I'm going to lean because otherwise you won't be able to see what I'm doing, and run. Okay, so now we've hit that point, we can run that section all the way forwards into the front. So as I said, the back piece under your occipital bone is the most difficult area of this haircut. Everything else is pretty easy because you're standing in 3 places and you're just running your work all back into the same position with the same parallel sections that you do from the above your occipital bone all the way forwards. Okay, so again, I'm now going to work one side, then the other. So I'm going to control my right hand side first, step into the right, and start to formulate my piece down. And then we want to pull all of this hair back because I still want to maintain some length in that front area. So by working over direction, it just creates our length and makes us keep control of some length in there. Okay. If you're really concerned about where your guest's length's going to fall, and she said to you, I want it there, you can put your little dink in and then over direct your hair back and find that little point and cut it. It won't ever let you down doing it like that. Okay. So then we're going to run that same section all the way into the front. Are there any questions so far? Is everyone with me so far? It's quite a simple little cut, really, isn't it? But is there anything that anyone's not really understanding, or anything anyone does a little bit differently, or they've seen doing differently in salon? Please do let me know. So again, stepping into the right, and I'll run my line. So we're just following a guideline. Okay, that's all we're really looking to do. Last little piece in the front.
Well, this might sound really silly and obvious, but what if they had long hair and they wanted like a short grad? Would you do the outline first then?
Generally, yes. I always normally start with the outline first. Unless you'll see at the end of this call, or on the end of this video, once we've done our outlines, you'll see why I've done it differently. But when you're doing it in salon, unless you're doing something quite creative, or you know somebody wants to have a little bit more of a jazzy outline to their hair, then yeah, start with your baseline first of all. It's a much easier way to work it, and a much more safe way to work. When you see what we've done at the end of this, you'll see why I'm starting with my graduation. Okay, but you are right. We want to basically start with the line first of all. If you're just looking for that tiny little touch of graduation, then you're perfect. Okay, hope that answers your question. So again, into here, we're going to run this line through, and we're nearly done with our wet cutting. Okay, so a lot of this haircut is done once it's dry. So again, we're going to stand into the left and just run this line. So exactly the same as the right, step into the left slightly, elevation starts to lower because we want to keep that weight into the sides, and over direct our section back into our shape, and we can run a nice clean little line into the front. Now don't worry if your balance is off, it generally will be perfect because you're balanced in here and then you're standing in the same place and over directing to the same place. Your balance will always, not always, 90% be fine. There's always a chance that it's not going to be, but if it isn't, it doesn't matter because we've still got to do our outlines. Okay, so we're going to lift that line a little bit more in the front when we get to that point. But chances are, if you're balanced off your occipital bone lengths and off your occipital bone area, you will be balanced by the time you get to the front. Generally, it's not a guarantee, but if your body position is in the right place, you should be fine. Okay, so don't do it if you feel like, oh, my balance is off. Don't message me and tell me off. But generally, you'll find it will be close to perfect. Okay, so we come in again and run the line, and again just into here, over direct back, and again control,
By this point, Rob, have you stopped increasing the elevation?
Just, yeah, I'm still lifting a little bit, but you wouldn't really notice it. If you lift all the way up, then you're going to get too light in the top. So yes, you're right. You can stop your elevation now. Chances are you're going to lift a tad higher because you have been the whole way. But yeah, you want to stop your elevation around about the top piece. Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I forgot. I should have said that really. I'm still elevating a little bit, but I would probably say to slow your elevation down towards the top.
Thank you.
No worries. So that is our wet shape. All right. And I think you'll all agree that it doesn't look pretty clean at the moment, does it? Even that's on a block. It looks a little bit shabby and a little bit shoddy outline-wise. It doesn't look fantastic. The graduation internally, I'm pretty happy with, but you'll notice all of my outlines are a little bit soft, aren't they? They're not the best things you could ever see. If you sent somebody out from the salon, they may be happy. They're probably going to say, what's going on there? Okay. Does this technique put internal shaping into the front, or is it mainly cutting the outline? Yes, it does. So it puts shaping into the front. So because we're over directing from front to back and we're graduating, our graduation starts high and then it's coming lower and lower and lower into that point. So you're gradually, by pulling back to the back, over directing, you're pushing that weight from the back into the front. So we maintain that nice control around her jawline area. And then on our outlines, we're going to see what we do differently. Okay. Hope that answers your question. I'm going to blow dry. Okay.
Rob, can I ask you a question before you blow dry? You see, like we have that bang in the front there.
Yep.
The round bob. If that wasn't there, because you create a shape, it creates more shape in the front. It would be longer, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
So how would you manipulate it? Am I using the right word?
Yeah. So, do you mean how do you get rid of this?
Yes.
I'm going to show you how I'm going to get rid of this.
Okay.
But if you didn't want that when you were working just the bang clean line, you stand in the back. Okay.
Okay.
So because you're pulling this hair far enough away from that to control your outline. Okay. But because I want this in there, because you'll see why once we blow dried, that's why I stepped into the side. Okay.
Okay.
That's got less far to travel than if we were pulling it back to here.
Okay. Thank you.
Good. So I'm going to blow dry. I'm going to dry quite quickly, hopefully. Give yourselves a little bit of a break. I know some of you have come from Darren's school to mine, so take a couple of minutes break. I'd say about 5 minutes or so. Get yourselves a cup of tea. I will pause the recording so it doesn't show me blow drying the whole time, but I'm literally going to wrap dry, same as we did last week. Just work the hair from left to right. And it's basically stretching the hair around the head, using the head as a template to get a nice clean bevel. And then I'm going to work the fringe in with my blow dry. There's a bit of jump on this mannequin, so I've got to work a bit harder on the fringe. But we'll be back in about, I'd say about 6 minutes. Okay, so I'm going to pause the recording. If you guys want to go and get a little cup of tea, we're going to resume. I have blow dried. And you will notice that we're a little bit messy. As we said earlier, we're a little bit messy on our outlines. Our internal shape seems to sit quite nicely, but in there's a big hole, isn't there? And the graduation around the back, that sits quite nicely as well. So by elevating your sections each time, we've just created that little bit more of a head-hugging silhouette. There's not really a very heavy lump or bumps in the haircut, which is really nice. But we need to combat this back bit, okay? So I'm going to put a little bit of serum in just to smooth all of the hair down and ensure that what I do next doesn't change the complexities of my blow dry. So I'm very big on serum. I like putting serum into my mix. We said last week about actually working with a concoction of stuff or a cocktail of different products, which works fantastically well. If you've got a heat defense spray, mix that with like a smoothing cream and put a little bit of serum in there as well. It works so well. Okay. So now what are we going to do? I need to get rid of this. I want to lift this line up a little bit more in the front where it's sort of bings and sort of sags down. This line in here, I like that length on her. If we have a little look at our suitability, she sits quite nicely with that little length. I could lift it a little bit more if I wanted to, because as we said, we were looking for something from the point of the chin in the jawline into the lip area, okay? I like that length, but it falls down, falls away, and then comes into the top of the shape, okay? So we're gonna rectify that now. Big tip for if you're doing your outlines last, anything creative, a lot of you guys will end up on stage shows or on shoots, keep the head upright at all times, okay? If you pop the head forwards, your nape, the skin on your nape starts to stretch, and then you'll put this beautiful line in, and then when you lift it up, it'll all change because the neck skin starts to sag a little bit more, okay? So we're gonna start from a point in the back, and we're gonna run up into our line and flow our shape forwards. Okay, so I'm going to come down level with the mannequin, lift her up a bit, and I'm going to run my line and clean everything up. So I want to get rid of that big corner in there now. Okay, so with the points of our scissors, we're going to comb through and then leave the hair alone. Don't hold it in the comb because you're going to be putting too much tension in the hair. Okay, and we're going to run this line all the way around. So I'm going to find the central point and quite confidently run my line. Okay, so again, come down and work my line through. Now on a mannequin, you'll find that your hairline starts to point away a little bit. When you're working on a guest, any outlines you do on a person are going to sit a lot flatter because of the way the hair's put in on a mannequin. So don't ever let that sort of put you off. Once you can control something on a mannequin, you'll find it so much easier on a person. So we'll see we've come up and into the side. And now I want to just run that line all the way through into the front. So our head is up again, okay? I'm going to comb through once, and I'm going to choose where my length goes. So if I move her over there, so I don't get the big head in the way. And I now want to choose where my line flows into. Okay, so I can come a little bit higher in here. And then just start to run my line into my chosen length in the front. So now if we remember, we had our chosen length just sits up into here, yeah? And this is all the untidiness. This is all the area that we wanted to get rid of. So just with the hair in its natural fall, we can start to really clean that area away. Either come from back to front or front to back, whichever you prefer. So if you want to come in from the front and run that line, you can do. Personally, I come from the back, so I find it a little bit easier. Again, just ping off any little areas in there. And run that nice clean line. So if we see from the back, we just get that real nice open flow to run into that front piece of hair. So this isn't something you'll do on every single client that you do. It's primarily something that if you've got someone quite edgy, somebody with a really good hairline, this goes down really well on shows, or if you're ever doing demos and things on stage, it always seems to go down quite nicely, okay? So now we come into the back again, and we want to flow that line into the other side, okay? So we've got to find the central point again, and we're going to come low. Make sure I'm balanced off this side first of all, that'd help. And then off our center point, just start running our line back in. So you can either come from the front or the back if you want to, completely up to you. And this is a trial and error sort of thing. So we want to put our line in, check the balance. I generally leave it slightly lower on my second side, just to ensure that I can come in and completely create that really nice formed line. And then we'll come back in again, get rid of any internals that could throw you, and run your line and get your balance. And then clean off any internals again. And then we'll check our balance. So you can see I'm slightly lower on this side. So I'm going to come back in again from the front, find where my balance goes, and come in from higher. Now, when you're doing outlines, don't go crazy on them. Really focus on doing little bits at a time, because even though it looks like you're very, very off balance at one point, you can take a tiny, tiny piece of hair off and you just start to realize that you're actually off balance the other side. Okay, so really do work these down nice and slowly and make sure that your the first side that you did is nice and tidy before you come into your second. And then when we just work this shape up, really gradually get your balance in nicely. So with this, I always say to people, I look in everybody's mirror. I'd have her turned around. I'd be looking in the person who's working behind me's mirror, and I'd be focusing in their shape, because I know this haircut is going to make people's heads turn in the salon. They're all going to look and see what you're doing and have a little look and see how you actually created something like that. The most important thing that you want is for your clients, or other people's clients, really, to look at your work and say, wow, that looks fantastic. Maybe they don't want something like that, but you can give them something really neat and tidy, and they're going to be very, very happy with you. So again, we can see now that you've got our target length, our little bit of dip, and we want to run from in there to into your shape. So again, support your scissors with your finger and run through, take off any little pieces that may pop out, and check your balance. Quite happy with that. And then just clean it all up. So make sure we get a nice clean line and something really beautiful that flows from the back to the front. Balance seems pretty good. Are there any questions? Anyone got any questions they want to ask about this or about anything else?
Does it always look like diagonal like that in the center?
In here?
Yeah.
Doesn't have to. I only work that because it's where I trained. We used to do the diagonal center bit all the time, and leave the point in the back, as somebody else has said there. We always used to do like a little point in the base, and it's just a way to show geometry and show your hairline. The hairline is the most beautiful part, really, of somebody's head. So we controlled that line and left a little point into the back, and it really worked quite nicely for us the whole time. If you didn't want to have that slight point, you can lift that up slightly and just run that little line in. It's completely up to you. It's completely your haircut. It's your prerogative of how you like to do it. When you come on to level 3, there's situations in level 3 where you'll think that, I don't like that, but it's really nicely done. And you'll all have these situations with your colleagues in the academies, is that somebody will do something that you really think you would personally change, but it's something that they find beautiful. So that's what I love about hairdressing, is that it's so in your own eye, and it's also what you love about the looks and what you don't like about looks, and how would you do something slightly differently. And when you guys all come onto level 3 with us, you'll start to realize just how different people and just how differently you can create something so beautiful. Okay, so I leave the point in, but you don't have to leave the point in if you don't want to. If you'd rather lift your point up, you can do. And with our fringe, again, I'm just running across just to clean all of the fringe area up and create that slight rounded feel. Anyone got anything else they want to ask?
Looks great.
Thank you. It's a very classic haircut that can go a very, very long way in making you look like you can control hair. When realistically, all we've done is a classic grab bob, stepped into the right hand side, stepped into the left hand side, and just left a little bit more strength to it, is all. There's a colleague of mine who works in the LHA. She's Claire Atkins. I don't know if anyone's met her. Those of you who are on from Loughton, you'll recognise her. She has just messaged me privately saying, "I'm all about the classic. She's all about the texture," and it's so true. Which goes back to what I was saying, that people have their mindsets and people have what they like doing about hair. But yeah, you stick to what you know and you like what you know. But Claire, she's really good. She went through the same process as I did as qualification. And the way we cut hair is completely different, but we can get something so beautiful out of something that starts off so unbeautiful when a client walks in the door. So whatever you do, you can find something in your work to suit somebody and to make somebody look incredible, whether you love texture or whether you love classic work. Use what you know and use what you do. What kind of hair would you not recommend this cutting? The only thing I wouldn't recommend the cutting is if somebody had a very, very bulky hairline, like a nape whirl or something. The thicker the hair, the better. If the hair's really fine, probably not as well. But chances are I would recommend this for a lot of people. I find that ladies love this sort of look where you do leave that little point in the base. But curly hair, it works fantastically well. I love curly hair when it's stacked out here. It's beautiful. I'd love to do a few demos on curly, but we don't have the proper blocks. The blocks just aren't curly enough. But when you do this on somebody with curls, the curls come out here. It's really stunning. Hopefully that answers your question. So what we have is a nice round fringe. And again, I'm going to leave the fringe. I'm not going to take it square because I want to do what we were talking about earlier. I want to do a face framing area and a face framing sort of bit of work for us. So I want to leave that fringe alone for now. Length into the side, nice and tucked with our graduation. So the graduation sits nice and high. You can see what I mean by that weight line coming in quite high and then just running into the point and connecting in down into the front piece. So you get that sort of two form of geometry running through the overall look. Round into the back, the graduation all sits nice and neat and tidy into the base with that really nice sort of angled outline that I personally love. You may not, but you can think of something else you'd do. And similarly into the side, the point comes round and sort of connects into the front. I love that sort of two-tone bang bang into there as well, from the fringe into the overall line. I think that's something really beautiful that I love doing. That's why I like sharp outlines, but you can get something really clean and then really clean in there, and it works really well. Thank you all. I hope you like it. Are there any questions before we go?
I was just going to ask one question. Sorry, I seem to be talking all the time, but I've seen people do that haircut in salons, but they've used like clippers.
Yeah, nice.
Like, would you ever use clippers for that, or do you prefer?
Me personally, I prefer scissors. It goes back to what I've learned from my training. It goes back to what I love doing myself. I love seeing that move of the line with my scissors. Clippers are perfect also. There's nothing right or wrong about using either. So if you feel comfortable using clippers, then yeah, that's fine. Thanks, Claire. Thank you all so much. You guys who are with me today from Camden, thank you for today. It's been a smashing day. Anything you guys need over the next couple of hours or into